Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtatara Satashi Srimad Divine Grace of Charnaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagavan Ki Jai, Granth Raj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 13, entitled The Appearance of Lord Braha. Text number 37. Dikshanu janmo pasada sirodaram. Dikshanu janmo pasada sirodharam. Tvam prayaniyo dayaniya dhamstra. Tvam prayaniyo dayaniya dhamstra. Jiva pavargyas tava shirshakam krato. Jiva pravargyas tava shirshakam krato. Satyava satyam chitayo savohite. Satyava satyam chitayo savohite. Dikshanu janmo pasada sirodharam. Tvam prayaniyo dayaniya dhamstra. Jiva pavargyas tava shirshakam kratoho. Satyava satyam chitayo savohite. Dikshanu janmo pasada sirodaram. Tvam prayaniyo dayaniya dhamstra. Jiva pavargyas tava shirshakam kratoho. Satyava satyam chitayo savohite. Yadamstra. Siva pasanchas tava shirshakam krato. Dikshanu janmo pasada sirodaram. Yam prayaniyo dayaniya dhamstra. Jiva pravargyas tava shirshakam kratoho. Satyava satyam chitayo savohite. Dikshanu janmo pasada sirodaram. Tvam prayaniyo dayaniya dhamstra. Jiva pravargyas tava shirshakam krato. Satyavasatyo Vidyayo Savohite. Mataji. Dikshanujanmo pasada sirodaram Tvam prayaniyo dayaniyadamstra Jiva pravargyas tava shirshakam krato Satyavasatyam chitayo savohite. Word for word, diksha, initiation, anujanma, special birth, spiritual birth, or repeated incarnations. Upasada, three kinds of desires, relationship, activities, and ultimate goal. Siradharam, the neck. Tvam, you. Prayaniya, after the result of initiation. Udayaniya, the last rites of desires. Damstraha, the tusks. Jiva, the tongue. Pravargya, prior activities. Tava, your. Shirshakam, head. Kratoho, of the sacrifice. Satya, fire without sacrifice. Avasatyam, fire of worship. Chittaya, aggregate of all desires. Asavaha, life breath. He, certainly. Te, your. Translation by His Divine Grace Abhay Channa Ravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Moreover, O Lord, the repetition of your appearance is the desire for all kinds of initiation. Your neck is the place for three desires, and your tusks are the result of initiation, and the end of all desires. Your tongue is the prior activities of initiation. Your head is the fire without sacrifice, as well as the fire of worship, and your living forces are the aggregate of all desires. There's no purport, so we shall continue to 38. So mastureta savananyavastitihi samsta vibedastava deva datavaha satrani sarvani sarira sandis tvam sarva yagna kratur ishti bandhanaha. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Abhay Channa Ravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. O Lord, your semen, this is the translation of text 38. O Lord, your semen is the sacrifice called Somayagya. Your growth is the ritualistic performances of the morning. Your skin and touch sensations are the 7 elements of the Agnishtoma sacrifice. Your bodily joints are symbols of various other sacrifices performed in 12 days. Therefore, you are the object of all sacrifices called Soma and Asoma, and you are bound by yagyas only. Purport. There are 7 kinds of routine yagyas performed by all followers of the Vedic rituals, and they are called Agnishtoma, Atyagnistoma, Ukta, Sodashi, Vajapeya, Atiratra, and Aptoryama. Anyone performing such yagyas regularly is supposed to be situated with the Lord, but anyone who is in contact with the Supreme Lord by discharging devotional service is understood to have performed all different varieties of yagyas. Om Gyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivas Adigaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So we're continuing with the prayers of the saintly personalities of the universe, offering or their offering unto Lord Varahadev after he lifted and killed Hiranyaksha. So here in these verses, it's I'm lost of words. A very prominent point is that we see that the Lord has appeared as a boar. And boars are considered to be quite dirty creatures. In fact, their activities are such abominable activities that they're considered in the lowest grade of darkness or ignorance. But the Lord has assumed this form, but still remains in his transcendental state. Ajopisan avyayatma bhutanam ishvaropisan prakritim stam adhisthaya sambhavami atmamayaya. He appears again and again in his transcendental form. So the Lord has appeared in such a way, and how will we understand that? How will we know what his form is like? How will we know what the nature of his form is? How will we know the qualities and the characteristics of Lord Boar? By reading Srimad Bhagavatam. And Srimad Bhagavatam is telling us that this is what Lord Brahma and the sages saw. And this is what they understood from seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You see, there's a difference between the prayers here and the prayers offered by the rishis before, when Varahadev just appeared. In fact, it's not mentioned what prayers they offered, but we can read. This is text 25, when the great sages and thinkers who are residents of Janaloka, Tapaloka and Satyaloka heard the tumultuous voice of Lord Boar, which was the all-auspicious sound of the all-merciful Lord, they chanted auspicious chants from the three Vedas. So they understood, actually verse previous to this, it's mentioned that, no, it's not in this verse. They actually understood it to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they just chanted verses from the three Vedas. But we don't know what glorification they offer to the Supreme Lord. But Bhagavatam is so merciful that these rishis again offer prayers, and these prayers are captured for our benefit. And what are these prayers? These prayers are glorifying the form of the Lord. And although we assume the boar to be a very obnoxious creature in the mode of ignorance, the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Lord Varahadev, he is considered to be the Supreme Pure. In fact, Prabhupada mentions that the form of the Lord is actually the personified Vedas. And if you see these verses and these purports, Prabhupada's emphasizing this point as how the Lord is non-different from the Vedas, and how the Lord is, in fact, the object of the Vedas. In fact, it's here, this is text 28 purport. His body is all Vedas or transcendental. But he has assumed the form of a boar. He began to search out the earth by smelling just like a hog. The Lord can perfectly play the part of any living entity. So the point I'm coming to make is that if you read these prayers end to end, you'll understand how they're glorifying the Lord's bodily parts as instruments or as the results or as the process of yajna. Because the Lord is apapa viddham. He's free from all sins, and he's also known as prophylactic and antiseptic. What's this is Nishopanishad, I've forgotten the Sanskrit. But Prabhupada says here, he's antiseptic, which means he's not affected by any material contamination, and prophylactic, he's the supreme pure, he purifies everything. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the Lord Boar is the most pure personality of Godhead in nature. And in fact, it's mentioned that the bodily limbs of the Lord represent different aspects of the yajna, as we've been seeing the last couple of verses. Like yesterday's verse talks about the particular instruments used in yajna and how they relate to different bodily parts of the Lord. If you have a look when there's yajna being performed, or a homa being performed in the temple or anywhere, you'll notice that there are instruments that the pujari uses in offering these oblations into the fire. So you'll find instruments that look like it'll be a stick with a round head. But actually that round head, if you have a look very carefully, in the center it's partitioned. That's the nose of Varahadev. And that's what we use to offer ghee into the yagya. And that's what's being mentioned here, that your nostril is another plate of sacrifice. In other words, it's known as shruva. And shrak, or a plate, Prabhupada translates as a plate of sacrifice because, what do we know of shrak and shruva? Then you'll have another one that looks like it's like a triangle shape, and it looks like a nice pouring instrument. It's a handle with a pouring instrument. That's a shruva. So you'll notice in the 11th canto, even prior to that, in earlier sections of Srimad Bhagavatam, you'll notice how it talks about yagya appearing as the Yuga avatar with the shrak and shruva, because he's the one initiating yagya, the whole process of yagya, or to perform sacrifice in that particular age. So these are the instruments being used. And these instruments are non-different from the bodily parts of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because they're in relation to Him, and they're in relation to sacrifice unto His lotus feet. In today's verse, this is text 37, we're talking about different aspects of the Lord in terms of how His appearance represent the desire for all kinds of initiation. How His neck is the place for three desires, because it's mentioned the Lord's neck has three lines, like a conch shell. Your tusks are the result of initiation and the end of all desires. Your tongue is the prior activities of initiation. Your head is the fire without sacrifice, as well as the fire of worship, and your living forces are the aggregate of all desires. In text 38, the translation is that the Lord's semen is a sacrifice called Soma Yagya. Your growth is a ritualistic performance of the morning. Your skin and touch sensations are the 7 elements of the Agnishtoma sacrifice. Your bodily joints are symbols of various other sacrifices performed in 12 days. Therefore you are the object of all sacrifices called Soma and Asoma. You are bound by yagyas. But if you actually have a look at the Sanskrit here, Prabhupada translates it in such a way we can understand. But then if you have a look at the Sanskrit here, Prabhupada's saying here that the sacrifices performed over 12 days is known as Satrani. Then you'll have Kratu, which is Soma sacrifices. In this way, in the purport, Prabhupada says actually there are 12 kinds of yagyas. 7 kinds of routine yagyas. And these 7 kinds of routine yagyas are all present within the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and He's worshipped in such a way. In fact, if you have a look at, I remember when I think it was in previous class, I remember when I was reading one of Mahabharata, it's mentioned there that the kings to perform Agnishtoma or any of these sacrifices, they had to amass a huge amount of wealth just to perform one sacrifice. They'd have to literally nearly come to this extent of emptying out their own treasury to be able to perform such sacrifices. Because the kings, when they perform such sacrifices, they do it for the benefit of the whole kingdom. And they have to follow the agama or their rituals and the regulations to perform such yagya. So that's why you'll see they'll perform yagyas with the kundas like, 10,000 so long, such 10,000 brahmanas wide, performing all the yagya and sacrifices for them. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead is worshipped in such a way. So what can we take from this? First thing, as I was mentioning, the Lord's body is transcendental. We should not take, because in the back of the mind we'll think, Lord Boar, haha, He appeared as the Supreme Boar, and we take a good, we enjoy how He performed such sacrifices, He dove into the water, picked up the earth, killed Hiranyaksha, Jai Jagadisha Hare, oh glorious, that's it. But we need to understand, who is Varahadev? Sunday is Varaha Dwadasi. It's a good opportunity to meditate. We've been given such a great opportunity by Gopinath to meditate on his form as Varahadev for the last so many weeks, and so on in the future as well. And it's a good opportunity for us to understand that when the Lord appears, He appears in the form of a boar, but He does not take such material contaminations like the living entity. The reason why this is emphasized, it's like Prabhupada's getting the nail and hammering it so many times through Srimad Bhagavatam, is Janma Karma Chamev Divyam Evam Yo Vedi Tattvadaha. If you just simply understand the transcendental nature of Krishna's birth and His activities, then Tyaktva Deham Punar Janma Naiti Mameti So Arjuna. You don't have to come back here again. Arjuna, you'll come back to me. It's such an important understanding. To understand that the Lord's form is transcendental. Because the moment you accept or deviate from this principle that, oh yeah, the Lord accepted the body of a boar, then immediately you'll put him down on our level. One, it's an offense, and second, it's pure ignorance. Because the Lord is beyond the conditioned entities, conditioned situation. So it's a very important point to note. And the second point to note today is that the Lord is worshipped by yagyas. And one who performs yagya, he's very close to the Lord. Anyone performing such yagyas regularly is supposed to be situated with the Lord. But anyone who is in contact with the Supreme Lord by discharging devotional service is understood to have performed all different kinds or different varieties of yagyas. So you know that there's a couple of points here. First is that to perform yagya or any type of activity, for example, karma, jnana, yoga, to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there needs to be bhakti involved. There needs to be some element of bhakti for advancement in such paths. So naturally, one who is performing such activities according to the Shastra, according to the bona fide spiritual master, then naturally there will be an element of bhakti in their service or in their practice of their particular yoga system. And naturally they'll come closer and closer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But what's the degree? Ye yatam mam prapadyante. To the degree of their material desires, to the degree of their service to the Lord, to that degree they will get closer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the point I'm making here is that by discharging devotional service directly, naturally we'll always be with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We'll always be in His service, in His shelter. But we see so many examples of how performing yagya, it's an important practice, but how by performing yagya people have gone off track. You know, they initially started performing yagya properly for the purpose of worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but gradually, the results, they became enticed by it and they went off track. And the classic example is of King Prachinabahisat, and how he performed yagyas, and he continued performing yagyas, and he lost the plot. And Narad Muni had to come back and whip him. Hey, look. And it so happened that he was so attached to performing yagyas that Narad Muni had to display his mystic potency to wake him up. That, hey, look, all the living entities you sacrificed during your activities, look up there. They're waiting to kill you. They're waiting to enjoy after. Repay their debt after you die. And so, of course, Prachinabahisat will come to his senses. So in another way of, if you understand how people fall away from yagya, or fall away from the purpose of yagya, knowingly, unknowingly, willingly, unwillingly, is another classical case of King Nirga. And how he was performing the charitable activities in worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But he made a mistake. But the funniest thing in this whole pastime is that when he's explaining himself to Krishna, he tells him, you may know me, I've been celebrated as the famous King Nirga, the most pious king. So what's the point of all his yagya? He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who cares? An insignificant insect in front of the Supreme Lord. You may know me as King Nirga. I am such a great personality, and I offer such great sacrifices. So this is the result of his activities, that it just produced pride to the extent that he simply, worshipped the Lord and said, now let me go back to the heavenly planets. Let me continue to enjoy. He lost it. Whereas Nalakuvera and Manigriva, by the mercy of Narad Muni, they understood, after so many years of punishment as trees, they understood Krishna's position, paid obeisances to him, and asked him what he wants them to do. And he told them to go back to the heavenly planets and to continue their devotional service there. They remain devotees. So, by performing yagya in of itself, just simply as a ritual, is a problem. And we see that problem even 500 years ago in Navadvip. Where in Navadvip, they were performing, even before that, when Buddha appeared, just before he appeared, everyone was using the Vedas, the ritualistic performances, the yagyas prescribed in the Vedas, simply to kill animals. Simply for the purpose of killing animals. So they lost the point, they lost the plot. So then the Lord appeared as Buddha and completely annihilated or stopped this nonsense. Then again in Navadvip, they are performing ritualistic practices of the Vedas simply for the purpose of their sense gratification. They were performing, all these different types of yagyas and things, to the extent they are performing the vivaha yagya, or the vivaha samskar, and marrying of cats and dogs and goats and things, simply because of their pride in their opulence, in their understanding of the Vedas. And seeing this, as we heard a few days ago in Advaitacharya's appearance day, seeing this, all the Vaishnavas were completely disturbed, because they lost the point, they deviated. In the name of worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they are performing all of these activities. So then, therefore, yajna has to be in relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, in all yagyas, Prabhupada says, there's mantras that are dedicated to worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And it's mentioned in each of the yagyas that the bhoga, or the articles of sacrifice, are offered to the Lord. And the yajna, the fire itself, represents the tongue of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And all the bhoga that's offered to the Lord, that remnants of that is then offered to the demigods. Otherwise the demigods won't accept such yajna. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the background, the original source, or the original purpose of the Vedas. Therefore, Prabhupada is saying here, one who is in contact with the Supreme Lord by discharging devotional service is understood to have performed all different varieties of yagyas. Therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has appeared to give us this Sankirtan yagya. And so, therefore, if you read throughout all of Prabhupada's books, Prabhupada say, yes, there was this yagya performed. Yes, there was this deity worship performed. Yes, this was performed. Yes, that was performed. But in this day and age, the Yuga Dharma is to chant the holy names of the Lord. The Sankirtan Yagya. If one simply engages in the devotional service of the Lord in this way, one will please the Yagya Purusha, and is guaranteed one will go back to Godhead. Very simple process Mahaprabhu has given, and we practice that. Therefore, we are very close to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, in Navadvip, there was a Brahmana actually, and this Brahmana, he was quite well known in the city, in the whole area. And in this particular place, the Brahmana, he heard of these kirtans that are happening in Srivas Thakur's home. And this Brahmana was thinking, I'm Brahmana. I perform all different types of sacrifices, meditation processes. I'm well known throughout this community as being a well-situated Brahmana. And, I should be given all access to anywhere, wherever I go. And so when he had tried to enter into Srivas Bhavan, the home of Srivas Thakur, he was denied entry. And this infuriated him. And so he left in such great anger. And the next day when he saw Gaur Nitai, then he came running to them. And he told and chastised Nimai that my dear Nimai, not my dear Nimai, he said, Nimai, you are not allowing, he didn't say such a, it's a very mature way he was saying, I am performer of such sacrifices, I am a Brahmana, but you denied me entry into your, in other words, in an immature way, you didn't let me come in, what are you doing? And then he said, well, I'm so qualified, you did not let me in, and you've committed an offense. And he broke his Brahman thread and he said, therefore I curse you that you'll never be able to enjoy material happiness. And what did Mahaprabhu do? Haribo! He started dancing and chanting in ecstasy. And this Brahmana went, yeah, I've done my duty, But the Supreme Personality of Godhead enjoyed. So, you see, the purpose in which the Brahmana performed all of these activities, he lost the plot. He completely lost it. Whereas if you see in another instance, one Brahmana, a very dedicated Brahmana to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's service, he was attached to chanting the holy name. Everywhere and anywhere he went, his tongue was constantly vibrating the holy name. But whenever he wanted to go to the bathroom, he would hold his tongue. And one particular day, one boy happened, a small boy, he happened to see this act. And he told him, Prabhu, wait, what are you doing? And this Brahman is holding lota one hand, holding tongue in the other hand and going somewhere. What are you doing? He said, oh no, I need to go to bathroom. He said, why are you holding your tongue? He said, no, I keep chanting the holy name, but when you go to such dirty place, you should not chant actually these mantras in such dirty places. And this little boy chastised him, said, don't you know, chanting Hare Krishna is all auspicious, so pure, that wherever you go, anywhere you go, you can chant. There's na kala na niyama, there's no rules or regulation. And Brahman said, oh, really? Jai, okay. And then he continued. And when Mahaprabhu heard this, Mahaprabhu was so happy, he picked up this boy and put him on his lap. And he called him you are Guru. You are my Guru. And this boy was known as Gopal Guru. So you can see this boy, he has not performed any sacrifices. He's in his diaper, still in his nappy. Still he's very close to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in this Kali Yuga, our position is that we're so unfortunate. That's the base standard. Unfortunate. Manda sumanda matayo, manda bhagya hi upadritaha. Life is short, we're useless when it comes to mental faculty, for memory, completely unfortunate, low level, rock bottom, no good qualities. But Mahaprabhu is coming and giving us a simple thing. He's saying, here's the medicine. Stop sleeping on the lap of the witch of Maya. Wake up. Here's the medicine. Chant Hare Krishna. And simply by taking this mantra, simply by following Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this one instruction, what he came to achieve as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, and he told everyone to surrender. Mahaprabhu's changed his tactic. Rather than directly telling them to surrender, he said, here, come, taste. My Guru Maharaj gives this example. When you go to Vrindavan, when you go to Loi Bazaar, there are all these sweet shops, sweetmeats. And the vendors, or the people selling these sweetmeats, they're quite intelligent. So what they've done is that every shop you go, there'll be a picture of Prabhupada. They put a garland and they worship him. And it's just to entice, yeah, see, I'm also worshipping Srila Prabhupada. You should come to my store. And so in such a way, they would entice devotees to come there. And my Guru Maharaj was mentioning, the way they work is that they'll display all their sweets in the front. If you go to, I haven't been to Vrindavan, but I've been to Mayapur, and that's happened. And I remember when I was walking back with Ganesham Prabhu and the other brahmacharis back to where we were staying just outside, a couple of minutes away from the Mayapur complex. I remember I was walking and chanting, and suddenly I looked, I saw all these sweets. They're all arranged so attractively, And you see all these people walking by, they suddenly look, as they're walking by, all these sweets there. You're thinking, wow, man, I'd finish that off. They do it in such a way, Khaja, and you got jalebi, and you got all these laddus and everything. It's like, wow, man. And so this way all the vendors in Vrindavan have same situation. And that's not all. They will say, Hare Krishna. They'll say, Hari Bol, come here. Just take this. Just take this sample. And the person will come, whoa, sample, and they'll eat it. And they'll be like, wow, finished, hooked. Then he'll say, yeah, you can come and take, they'll start bargaining, you can take this many pieces for this much. And this person will already be eating and be like, finished. Wow. And in the same way, Mahaprabhu is giving the Maha Mantra. He said, you just chant. You come and chant. And the Maha Mantra is so attractive that these people will be like, what is this Hare Rama, Krishna, What is this? And it's too late. It's already touched their tongue. Finished. It's entered their ears. Finished. Like it's mentioned, I'll just finish. It's finished because once they've taken, now they have to pay the price because they've already got the taste. So they'll come to the temple. They'll come meet devotees. They'll take a book. They'll start following the 4 regulative principles automatically. Why? Because that taste is there. That taste comes. Vishya vinivartante niraharasya dehina rasavarjam rasabhyasya param drishtva nivartate. There, taste is there. Mahaprabhu is nicely coming in like a needle and, entering like needle and coming out like plow. Finished. Their material life is finished. It's mentioned in the history of the Australian Yatra when Bali Mardan and Upendra first came to Sydney. It's mentioned that one particular point, Upendra was standing outside Wynyard Station. Right? It's the next busiest station to Town Hall and Central. So Vineyard Station, people are rushing left, right, center. And here's Upendra, he's standing with his boyish smile, it's explained, and he's giving back to Godhead, stopping people, asking them. Actually, the devotees, those two devotees are so transcendental. They came to Sydney with a couple of Back to Godhead magazines, and that finished. Oh, that's a good point to actually mention. Actually, there used to be a Macmillan publishing center just here in North Sydney, and they had stocks of Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, the abridged version. So before the devotees even came here, Prabhupada's books were here. They were ready. Bhagavad Gita was ready to be distributed. So Bali Mardan finished all his Back to Godhead. He was thinking, what should I do now? So then he contacted Macmillan to see if they had books, and they had Prabhupada's books here. So he took them and started distributing them immediately here in Sydney. To the extent that they finished all of it, and they didn't know what to do. They didn't have much money. They printed just a small pamphlet, and they'd go and distribute that. And while distributing, they'd say, you can give us some money for it. Just a piece of paper. They'd give it to someone, and they'd ask, give us some money. They said 2 bob. I forgot how much that was. That was 20 cents, 50 cents, something like that. And it's mentioned there. They would say, what? 2 bob for a piece of paper? And they would give. They would give money just for a piece of paper, because they were shocked. What is this what is this devotee? What is this Mahamantra? What's happening here? What are these? They'd be completely bewildered because they have never seen devotees before. And in that state of consciousness, the devotees would just enter like needle, just give the piece of paper, they'd take some Lakshmi, give them the holy name, and people would become attracted to the movement. To the extent you see this one devotee in dhoti kurta in white standing in the Vineyard Station. All these people, what Vineyard Station's like, people wearing suits, people wearing this, that, going here and there. They don't even know what they're doing half the time. They're just being forced by nature to go one side of the station. You'll notice sometimes people go all the way to one side. Oh, I wasn't supposed to go this way. They go this way again, and they'll go continue their business. They're just completely madness. And there's one devotee with big smile. And Charu Prabhu at that time, he's walking back from his work. And he's just completely one of those states, bewildered, what am I doing? And suddenly he looks and he sees Upendra there distributing these flyers. And I'm coming to the point. And he's distributing the flyers. He's distributing the Back to Godhead as well at that point in time. And Prabhu what is this guy doing, He just walks up to him and says, what are you doing? He said, and then he explains, I'm a devotee of Krishna. I've been entrusted with this mission by my spiritual master. Explains the whole thing to him. And while speaking to him, that this Krishna consciousness is the dormant desire or the dormant propensity of the living entity, and that by chanting Hare Krishna you'll revive it. Now he's explaining everything to him and showing the Back to Godhead magazine. People are walking by, and as one particular instance, Charu Prabhu says, not one instance, but he's explaining of the many things that Upendra was doing. Upendra Prabhu is that as a person walked by, he would finish or stop in the middle of a sentence, and he would chant Hare Krishna in the person's ear. And then he told Charu Prabhu that, see, this person may not know what's happening, but it's already in effect. He's heard the Mahamantra. It's finished. Whatever he wanted to do in this lifetime, in this material world, it's finished. No hope. So he's explaining this to Charu Prabhu. And when I was reading that, I was like, wow, that's so powerful. We don't realize it. Mahaprabhu is lamenting to Haridas Thakur, look, I've come to deliver the world, nothing's happening. I'm bringing the holy name, nothing is happening. And Mahaprabhu, and he's telling, I'm delivering certain souls and other souls are not being delivered, what should I do? And Haridas Thakur is saying, it's okay, my Lord. You've already delivered. By chanting the holy name, even the non-moving living entities are becoming delivered. By chanting the holy name loudly, they get the benefit. We don't seem to see the full extent of that simple statement, the value of that simple statement. Sometimes, I remember once, one devotee was coming to the temple regularly for the morning program, evening program like that, and they would chant japa on the train, nice and loudly as they would come. And they'd be chanting. Sometimes people were like, what's happening here, What's he doing? And I remember one particular instance, he was telling me that one crazy person means he was a bit mad, mumbling, drunk, and speaking to himself, and he'd come and sat down somewhere. And this devotee was chanting very loudly. And this crazy person, suddenly turned back and said, hey, stop talking to yourself! And this guy is talking to himself. Hey, stop talking to yourself. Right? That. And the devotee is like, okay. Hare Krishna. But he benefited that living entity. He benefited the crazy fellow. Because the person heard the vibrations. And it was disturbing his own mumbling. So he was telling the devotee to keep quiet. But the point here I'm mentioning is that this Mahamantra is so powerful. We don't understand that how it's the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself. It is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It is Radha and Krishna. This holy name is the Nama and the Nami. They're the same. There's no difference between them. And we were reading this morning in Namamrit, or previous mornings, if you understand, I think it was this morning, that they're both you can understand they're both the same. Once you know that, then you're properly chanting Hare Krishna. Then you've come to the platform of pure, unalloyed devotional service. Because the name and the Lord, they're non-different. And that is our yagya. And therefore we perform this yagya. And Prabhupada has given us so much service to be able to come to that platform. Because Prabhupada knew how useless we are. You can't even sit down and chant properly. A couple of mantras we're already knocked out, Or after a good night's rest, still knockout. Another instance actually, we had at least my first 24-hour kirtan in Sydney. And I had knocked out upstairs. It was just too much for me. I couldn't take it after some time. I came back a couple of hours later, and when I came down here, devotees were still continuing the kirtan. 3-4 devotees were continuing the kirtan. Few devotees had just come in. And suddenly a drunk person walks into the temple. And everyone's like shocked. He just walks in. Nothing. No announcement, nothing. He just walks in, what do they call it? He's like completely dizzy walking into the temple room. He doesn't know, he's completely lost. He's not sober, he doesn't know what he's doing. Mats were laid out there, mats were laid out here, devotees were sitting with their instruments and everything. And he comes and sits right there where Prabhu is sitting, in that corner. He just sits right there on a mat. And he sits down like completely slouching, with his legs out. And he just sits there. 1 hour, 1.5 hours, 2 hours, just doing the whole kirtan. Just sitting there in the corner like that. And it was like, well, what should we do? Should we keep him here? Should we tell him to get out? Look at him. Some devotees are saying he's keeping his leg out, how offensive. Another person is saying he's falling asleep, what should we do? He's drunk, what is he doing in the temple? But he was sitting there, listening to the whole kirtan for 1-2 hours. Even the devotees couldn't stand that much. They were going out and coming in, going out and coming in. And this person was sitting there. And then after after his share of drinking the nectar, he just got up and left. He just got up and left. And, devotees were saying, who is this guy? What is he doing? And then one devotee just said, just see his fortune. Just see his fortune. He was drunk, not even the right state of consciousness. If you thought some new person comes, what's this place, what's happening here? They come and sit down. Then you can understand, there's some sanity, he's come, or she's come, they have some intelligence, they're coming to hear the Mahamantra, good, But this person completely off his head. He comes in, he sits down, and he's enchanted by the Mahamantra. Another time, one person drunk, he comes to the temple, he's completely intoxicated, comes, sits down, and chants full 16 rounds. One place, sits down, chants Mahamantra, 16 rounds. He's practicing bhakta, but he slipped a little. He sits down and he chants 16 rounds, finishes his rounds, he looks around, gives the beads and he goes, finished. So we should never underestimate this Mahamantra. We should never underestimate how this yagya will please Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So therefore we chant Hare Krishna regularly. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And Srila Prabhupada has mentioned that just as there's the Sankirtan, there's the chanting of the holy name with Kirtan. I'll finish with this point. These books, they are his recorded Kirtan. You want to know Prabhupada? You read his books. You want to perform yagya? Read his books. You want to perform something even greater than just reading his books, and you want to perform a bigger yagya? Then you go out and distribute his books. By distributing these books, that kirtan is so strong. Prabhupada says, Mridanga here, you can hear just outside the street. But this Brihad Mridanga you can hear across the world on the other side. And the example you can give here is that in Tokyo, there's not even one center being built. Suddenly some random, Japanese boy runs up to Prabhupada and says, Swamiji, where did you get all this knowledge from? Where did you get all this information from? And Prabhupada saying, just see, look. We're on one side of the world, distributing the book, and see what's happening here. So this Brihad Madanga is a very powerful Sankirtan Yagya, and we must always remain connected to it, because Prabhupada, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu mentioned, whoever you meet, wherever you go, whoever you meet, preach Krishna consciousness. And this book's distribution will help us the most by spreading Krishna consciousness far and wide. Okay? Thank you very much. 5 minutes left. Any comments, any questions? Okay. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagavan ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari Bol.